Good evening. You're listening live to the Xtreme Movie Show. I'm your host, Rob. And alongside me tonight from the great Midwest, working the day shift, is RDV. And that's tonight's movie, this $100 million flick on Netflix starring Jamie Foxx, Snoop Dogg, if you want to call him a star, and some other people on here in a supposed horror, comedy, action, slapstick, buddy sort of adventure. And I got to say, RDV, I wanted to like it. I wanted to enjoy it. There's some things that Jamie Foxx does really, really well. Unfortunately, this movie doesn't support those things. But then again, this movie doesn't really support anything good, in my opinion, because I think this movie is a lot of what Netflix is. Just a lot of, at best, mid, the term I'm told to be using these days. It's not very fun. It's not very enjoyable. I didn't think the action was very good. It looks like a slick movie because they spent $100 million on it. And I think, if I read it correctly, this is maybe going to be a movie that needed to come out on the big screen. But I don't understand Netflix why you'd spend $100 million on a piece of crap like this. Now, if you spent $10 million on it, that's different. But yeah, this movie tries not very hard, and it does a lot of different things and doesn't really do any of them well. So for me, it's a pass. But that being said, I've liked a lot of stuff that's not very good, I'll admit. So what's your take on this film?
Like I said, this is a very Netflix film. Jamie Foxx isn't that really a big actor to hold stuff on his own. They brought in Snoop Dogg because there's not a single person, maybe except for you, Rob, that hates Snoop Dogg.
I don't hate him. He's no good.
He's basically like Willie Nelson coming in and just referencing weed. That's all Snoop Dogg pretty much here. So he's supposed to be like the top dog, vampire hunter, and he smokes weed. That's Big John, whatever. But apart from that, though, I mean, yes, I liked a lot of the stunt work in here too. A lot of contortionists, a lot of different. I love the lore as far as there's different nests, there's different groups of species of vampires. We even see them.
Right.
We get it's basically like two people are forced to work together. One guy's by the books, and the guy, is like, no, this is how we do it. Otherwise, we survive. And they form a bond. You even get the neighbor in here. Natasha Liu Bordizzo, who's from Country Tiger, Hidden Dragon.
Mm-hmm.
It's not meant to be a serious movie. To me, it looks like they're kind of making fun of the vampire movies in a sense. Because the big thing when people say like, "Oh, vampire movies," the first thing I hear about is From Dusk Till Dawn, and I still say From Dusk Till Dawn, the original movie, was not as great as everybody thinks it is. So now this is in the same kind of, and that was more of a serious thing, where this is a little more campy, a little more this. It fits for a Netflix movie, and I'm a person that usually doesn't like Jamie Foxx movies. I just don't care for his roles that he does. He had a Jamie Foxx show, and to me, that was like the tip of his acting career. Doing comedy. Right. So doing this, like I said, I love the scenery. I love the idea, the whole vampires, the special effects. It's a simple A to B plot. So it's nothing to get really excited over. But I don't know what it is. I guess because it's vampires. That's probably why I was more attracted to it. I guess, and that's because Jamie Foxx
wants to like a vampire movie, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's a gimme.
That's why we watch them. That's why we watch From Dusk Till Dawn TV series, which was actually phenomenal. I still haven't found a better vampire series.
Yes.
Trying to think what the other ones was. What was the one with the? Oh, I'm trying to think of it. Crap. It had there was From Dusk Till Dawn, and there was another one. There was Vampires. That was the other one. John Carpenter, wasn't it?
Well, he did do a vampire movie. Yep.
Yeah, from 1998. Yeah, and then he did, and then the one with Bon Jovi. I don't care what he says. I still love that one. The Les Vampires, whatever it was. Les Muertos, whatever. And then you had Fright Night, and you did all these different ones. So basically, they turned this into basically a guy. He's a vampire hunter, on the down low. His wife is leaving him because he keeps lying to her. He's not reliable. He works as a fixing pools in San Fernando Valley in California. Where in truth, he goes around and he kills vampires, takes their teeth out, tries to sell them to pawn dealer. And we actually got an actual cool actor in here in this. I thought that was kind of cool. It's actually the guy who played Victor in Underworld.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to remember what his name is. He's been in other movies too.
We're talking the pawnbroker here that he tries to sell to,
Yes,
this where he
yes.
says, "Hey, I can't get in a union, so therefore you're getting lower
Peter
prices," and that's why he
Stormare.
tries to
Yeah,
go into it.
yeah. It was Peter Stormare. That's who it was. Yeah, it was really cool actor. Uh, yeah, I guess I know you'll get like a little cameo from Scott Adkins, which I totally missed. I don't remember him being in there at all.
Well, Scott's forgettable, actually, even though he stars in a lot of things, and he's super flippity
Yeah.
floppy action kind of guy. But he's, somebody that's done a just tremendous amount of things. And that's the problem with this movie, is that if you're gonna try to be campy or be like an '80s kind of throwback goof movie, go for it. Here, it felt like they didn't put any effort into it at all. Jamie Foxx, I'm like you, I'm not a huge Jamie Foxx fan. I think he has a pinch of talent a little bit in certain areas. His start was more musical based, believe it or not. Um, but in full disclosure for everybody out there, I'm still mad about Law Abiding Citizen, like most of you are as well. But those are the kind of roles that he should do. So when we see him with his really gorgeous wife and really cute kid and really nice house that there's no way they could afford, even in California, on the pool cleaner salary, I'm looking at that going, okay, he's kind of a shitty provider. I wouldn't blame her for leaving, but it's tired. It doesn't make me feel anything about it. Even though he takes her to the yogurt place and they try to make some jokes. It's 30 seconds in, a minute in. It's like, yeah, this is just tiring. It's not
See,
original.
I had
It's not.
opposite direction. I was pleasantly surprised, and I had fun the whole entire time.
Yeah, and it's amazing because let's talk about a minute in when he it's I'll agree with you on the way it looked, and we've talked about before how sometimes the pitch is better than the execution, but like I kind of liked the idea of, hey, let's look at, like, LA modern times with vampires, maybe a little lighthearted, and how they would get into, say, middle class kind of roles, right? And we
Mhm.
see, for example, him going to clean a pool and there's stuff in it, and you're like, okay, I can buy this. And Jamie Foxx is in there, and the person leaves the house, and he's got his pool supply tool chest, and then he has the secret bottom that has all the stuff in it that he sets up, and he has this
Yep.
big action sequence. And you're right, the contortionists and the way the vampires look is cool. I thought the fight was horrible, but that's me. I could say
It
for a lot
was
of
like
reasons why.
it's on the same level of choreography fighting as Evil Dead. If you think about it,
Evil Dead has a sense of humor. This
and
this just didn't to me.
this wasn't supposed to be humor. Well, I mean, I guess it was more humor and slash horror. You know,
Well, it's
yeah,
not scary, so it can't be
yeah,
horrific.
yeah. Well, in a sense that it's to little kids, it'd be scary. That's what I mean.
I
Yeah.
disagree. It would be hokey. Which, if that's
Well,
what it wants to
you're
be,
no
that's
longer a
fine.
kid though.
That doesn't really matter.
Which you were scared of back today. They've toned down so much, so we don't know what kids are scared of growing up now. Kids,
Well,
yeah,
I won't debate that point because I think there's some merit to it because
yeah.
of what kids don't see and see today. But the point is to me, within a couple minutes, and okay, we've got a really long extended fight on in the inside. Um, Again, the vampire old lady looked cool. The contortionist stuff is spot on. I'm like, okay, this is kind of cool shit. But I'm going, is Jamie trying to be cute here? Is he trying to be whatever? And then some of the things that happen in the fight, it's like, well, again, if you're going to do an action thing, do action. If you're going to be comedy, be comedy. Sell out one direction or other. You can't combine both and really be successful. And the fight felt like it was trying to go in two different directions because it was definitely over the top, which I don't mind. And I like the whole setup with, it's the middle of the day at a pool, right? But then just the domestic stuff was and I'm like, oh my God. But then it picked up for me a little bit later because we see in the subdivision,
Yeah.
ladies talking to a vampire roasting in the sun that's underneath the rebar where they're getting ready to pour concrete in.
Yeah.
But the writing is so awful and the acting is so awful here where it's like, I guess, you keep saying the words it's no longer about blah, blah, blah. And it's like, oh God, this writing is atrocious. But I like the idea of the
Yeah.
lady looking down on him with the umbrella so she doesn't get burned. And
Yep.
she's a real estate agent and she's a vampire. And there's obviously vampire conflict coming.
Yeah.
So there's some interesting potential setups here, but everything else is just not clicking at all.
Like I said, it's not it's at most it's an average movie as far as compared to some of the other movies that have come out in the. I guess I try not to compare everything to the 80s because I think that's unfair because 80s was a totally different style. So I compare it to what's out in the past 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
And on the past 20 years, this it doesn't have a huge, even though it had $100 million budget. I think that went more all to the stunts than they went to the actual like writing the dialogue and stuff like this. Dave Franco, it was weird.
Let's talk Dave Franco.
Dave Franco is just like when we can't get James Franco, we get his younger brother to try to do comedy, and it just didn't sit right with me because I kept thinking about this. It's like, man, when we watched like what was it, Shaun of the Dead, the comedy, they knew the comedy, they went into it, they
Exactly.
vulgar. This, they're kind of refined back, and then like they wanted to, I want you to see there's some gore and a little bit of comedy, and some minor action, but not really an action. It was just kind of like there's a zombie coming in here and he runs into the steel wire and cuts his head off, and Jamie Foxx makes a whole thing about it, and it worked every time. I honestly, this movie felt like they wanted to get Seth Rogen and James Franco back up again and have them be like vampire hunters. That would have worked 10 years ago before I found out how much of a douchebag Seth Rogen is. I mean, I like the movie Pineapple Express, so if this would have came out right around that time, this would have been a much better movie.
Let me offer this nudge. You're mentioning Seth Rogen because I think this is legitimate perspective you're bringing up here, especially for younger viewers. Okay, I certainly have zero issues with people's lifestyle choices, and that includes drugs and chemicals and all that stuff. So I'm not automatically anti this or that because of what somebody's lifestyle is or sexual activities. And the reason why I'm mentioning Seth Rogen is one thing that does not necessarily get put into movies a lot, which was a big thing in the 70s and going into the 80s, and not so much I think afterwards, is that you had stoner humor, and that's all Seth Rogen does. And it's maybe if you're stoned, it's cool or funny or whatever. But to me, Seth Rogen is just not talented. No, he's not funny at all. He might write a little bit. It certainly would have helped on here because this script was awful. But if you're going to go stoner comedy, that's fine. But even as a kid, in the 70s, if you're watching Cheech and Chong, for about 5 minutes, the stoner stuff's kind of funny because you're like, oh my God, people are talking about pot. But then after that, it just gets tired, and it just, so when Snoop comes on and that's all it is, and we know that's what he loves about, it's like, yeah, I get the point, but do something with it. Make Snoop come out and be, if Snoop was his partner instead of Franco, and Snoop tried to be as straight-laced as possible, something totally 180 out of his character, that would have kept you watching going, okay, when's he going to crack? When's he going to break? Or maybe Jamie, hands him a 40 or something like that. And he's like, oh no, I never drink, or something, I never drink 40, to play off the old Dracula line. You might've had something in there, but they don't even try in this movie. And knowing what Snoop is, it's like, okay, I get it, but make good use of what you have with what you have in there. You know what I'm saying?
I thought Snoop was actually pretty good towards the end of the film. It comes in with, because he comes with a little minigun and he has that belly burger on there. And then towards the end, because California, so of course he'd have the big giant belly burger. He's like, yeah, eat up, And then he goes, and at the end, he's like, he tells Jamie, he actually was serious because he wasn't really like a comedy in this. Snoop Dogg was actually like very serious in his actually acting in this role, which, like I said, it's even though he'd smoke weed, yes, apart from that, it wasn't like hey bro, you gotta smoke that, let me hit that, it wasn't like all those other movies, Next Friday or How High or whatever crap.
Right.
Yeah, it wasn't like that. Like at the end, he actually sacrifices himself. He he opens his vest. He's like, he got slashed on the neck. So you're up. So he knows he's gonna probably turn. As far as we know, we don't know. All he knows, if you get bit, you turn. But he got slashed in the neck, so we don't know if he's gonna turn or whatever. But he sacrificed. He basically locks the door. Mm-hmm. And sends, he's like, hey, James Foxx, go get your family. Go against the bad person. I'll hold off the rest of the people here. He basically, you see a giant blue ultraviolet light, go off the bomb. And we assume he's dead, I mean, that was actually pretty like, wow. I was like, they killed Snoop Dogg. I was like, really?
Kill him off. Come on.
I know. Well, yeah, it's revealed later. Spoiler.
Well, I mean, I'm just saying, it's that kind of movie where there's no tricks, there's no surprises, there's no interesting takes, there's no, hey, we've seen this before, but we're going to do something different with it. It's extremely lazy. And to your point about all the money went and everything else, you're absolutely right. And it looks good. But then a lot of things can, even on a $1 million budget. Really, it really comes down to the director and the
The camera
shot.
angles were good too, the scenery and stuff,
That's what I just
locations.
said.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, it
I agree
looks,
with you.
feels good.
The Chevy he's driving, the Chevy truck, man, love that. I mean, yeah, it's would have worked better with Seth Rogen and James Franco. You know, and because that's one thing people don't realize is James Franco was always the funny one, even in Panel Express and all those other things. James Franco was the pothead, but he was the better actor. Seth Rogen was just the guy complaining, "Are you all he did is swear," and like, it's like he was supposed to be the straight lace guy, but he ended up coming off like an idiot. But no, for being a low budget movie and for being usually a Jamie Foxx movie, I said I liked it because it's vampires, because it's scenery and everything else. You could replace Jamie Foxx with anybody else in here, and it would have been better. It's basically about Jamie Foxx being a deadbeat dad, or not. He doesn't have time for his daughter. He's not taking his daughter to school. That's why his wife's leaving him, and he keeps lying. So she's going. I mean, and then you get the point.
Funny,
No, it's not. It's
and it's like, why would we want to root for him?
Yeah.
And it's not Jamie Foxx. It's just the way they wrote it. It's like, give us something.
You do towards the end, because he actually is making an effort. The whole point of the movie is that he's basically got to he rejoins the union. There's a vampire hunting union, which I thought it was hilarious because that's the first. I've never heard of that. There's a union for vampire hunters. And he has to get. That's where he has to get in. That's the whole plot with he gets one more try. They bring in James Franco, who's works the desk, hates his job, and says you're the union rep, you have to go with him, and just but he basically wants to make $10,000. He has to sell all the fangs as much as he can. The only way he can make it is by rejoining the union. But even then, that was kind of dumb though, the union parts.
Absolutely.
If you think about it. But like I said, I don't know. I went into watching this movie with a low bar. Because literally, if I go in with a high expectation at any movie today, I'm killing you right now. Even some of the 80s movies, I usually will get very, very disappointed. So I'm assuming it's just going to be. Look at the cover. You got James Franco Dave Franco, the unknown Franco. He's got a neck brace on, and then you see Snoop Dogg with the Gatling gun, and you see Jamie Foxx in a Hawaiian shirt, and this screams like Netflix. Yeah. The last thing I watched with anything zombies was called Daybreak, which actually was, and the kid, it's funny, the kid they got, it was like Nukem High in a sense.
Right.
If you remember that they had different kids,
yes.
Different groups, and that was actually more entertaining because I unintentionally, the kid looked like a younger John Cena going around, just trying to find his girlfriend in the zombie apocalypse. And the bad guy, it was Matthew Broderick, the principal.
Well, I'll say this. The one thing I did like about the show that I came away from it is Audrey, the main vampire. I thought she had a decent look.
Yep.
Again, ignoring the writing part to it all.
There were hints, Souza,
there were hints of that if there's just more of say an 8-hour miniseries that they had on Netflix or something, and they took time to show you these things where maybe you didn't know who was a vampire and you didn't know all the groups, and they strung it out. I think this would have been very good to do that with. And we've talked about bloat and a lot of these shows that they don't know how to fill it in and all that too. But it seemed like she was in the movie that I wanted to watch and that nothing else was. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. It was really night and day with that. So, if it's a shit movie and Snoop's in there and it's going to have some pot jokes or whatever, okay, that's fine. I get it. It's on kind of the same level. So it's not like I think you can go into a film and say, well, I'm going to have high expectations because of this or low. But when something kind of stands out a lot more than the other, that can be good and bad for a variety of reasons. Bad because it really magnifies how average at best the rest of the movie is. And frankly, it's I didn't hate it, but it's just a shit sandwich. It's just crap.
No.
And she was good enough where you go, damn it, I would like to have seen more of it revolve around her and not whoever Jamie Foxx was and the whole
even the guy that was
thing, because they weren't that funny together to me.
The guy that was her second command, I kept thinking, is that Michael Madsen?
I mean, if you're reaching
Yeah.
for if that's Michael Madsen, then that means your focus is on the movie, which means the movie's not doing a good job. Have some
uh,
sex appeal, have
so
some
the
gore
other
appeal, something.
the other thing that's probably well, I guess some of you might find it more interesting than the actual movie watching itself is the guy who directed this. This is J.J. Perry, who has been over 149 different movies and TV shows. He's a stunt coordinator. He's acting credits. He's been in John Wick, Divergent, Machete Kills, Olympus Has Fallen, Total Recall, the reboot, Get the Gringo, Safe, Haywire. You know, he's been in all these. He was even the original Sub Zero, as it was, in Scorpion. He's in the Mortal Kombat movies. He's on that. And he's also does The Rage Within, Time Cop. There was I don't know. There was a another Time Cop. It's really weird.
Yes,
Yes,
unfortunately.
yes. But this guy, he's in Wild Wild West. The guy has never been in anything like, you know, where he's actually like an actual character other than Mortal Kombat Annihilation, where he actually played Scorpion, you know, or Cyrax. But but like I said, this is his second directing debut. I think he's done another movie too, other than this. I'm not sure, but
Well, I'll compare
yeah.
it to another movie that I don't know if it came out earlier this year. You'll know more than I do, but I watched it, so I'll just bring it up here. And it reminds me of the same thing. This is where I get turned off by movies in general sometimes. Um, not having ever played the game, I watched Uncharted with about a 5'5" tiny guy who I guess is Spider-Man, and Marky Mark. And it's awful. It's not fun at all.
Oh,
You can tell
Uncharted.
he spent a lot of money
Oh.
on it. And I love the idea of like the maps and the Indiana Jones ripoff of following on a plane and mystical things and puzzles. That shit's cool no matter what age you
Yeah.
are. But I'm like, it was so horribly green screened with all the CGI. This movie looked better to me, obviously, than that one. But back in the day, and we talk about when we do 80s films, the cheap ones from Canon Films, called Canon Classics, they knew that they were trying to make a B-level movie generally, and they were going to stick to a budget, and you were going to get something kind of unique out of it, no matter what it was. At least they went for it. Here, it's like not even, it's like uncooked white rice. You got to cook it, you got to add flavor to it, you got to do something with it, but they don't even bother because worst case, you're going to eat the damn thing if you're starving. And unfortunately, I think Netflix, due to the volume approach, I just don't see how in the long term they're going to be able to continue what they're doing subscription based wise, because everyone knows, well, you just got so much shit. I'll find some crap on there, which is literally where it is to watch it. And we've seen how like HBO Max and other paid channel places that focus on quality versus amount of hours, that people want to gravitate towards them. And if you're going to spend $100 million on something, it needs to be in the theaters. I mean, in my opinion, that's where you're going to get your return. And I understand the need to drive quarterly subscriptions to that. I've been saying for a year or two now here on the Xtreme Movie Show with you and with other guests that there's consolidation going on in the industry. So I think there's a potential for another big buyout or whatever. I think Walmart actually recently is getting to, if they haven't already pulled the cock, if you will, out, and so you get them with their type of service. Don't know how that's going to
Mm-hmm.
merge, but you're going to see this, and eventually, I don't think Netflix gets there and say, "Well, we'll just throw money
Yeah.
at it." You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
And unfortunately, we're getting a lot of stuff like this that's just forgettable, and it's filler. And there's worse on Netflix. Believe
I
me.
did like there's a party here where they go James Frank or sorry Dave Franco, because I don't watch Dave Franco movies. Him and Jamie Foxx team with these two brothers, they go in and they clear this giant nest. Like that was like 15, that was almost like 5-10 minutes of action. The rest of the movie is comedy, but that was your big action part, along with the car chase in the truck. So I mean, this was an action comedy. It just wasn't, up to your standard. That's all.
I didn't
But no,
profess a particular
but
standard, so
but
that's the
Netflix,
whole
but
point.
Netflix has a lot of good movies too. Other than just this coming out.
I mean, many may think that. This is an example of $100 million on a movie that's just not very good, and it may appeal to certain tastes, and that's fine. But
Well,
you
it's
could have
to me,
spent $10 million and made 10 movies, and those 10 movies you might have had 5 or 6 that would have been quality wise better than this one, which ultimately in the
the
long
reaction I've
term
been
I
seeing
think
with
it's
this
going to be.
movie when on social media, whatever, from actual, not from users, not just people just reposting, whatever. It's getting as much attention as Prey is, and people are liking it.
Well,
So
I don't believe in social media as far as it being accurate because we know how aggregate sites will skew numbers.
Twitter
We
has
know how
bots,
they'll do
yes,
that.
but Instagram, there actually are real people with their accounts. There are not just there's really isn't Instagram bots.
And what do you get for 100 million? A movie that nobody's going to want to watch a second time?
Well, I mean, it's subjective. You know, you're the first person I heard that has hated the movie.
I didn't say I hated it. I just said it wasn't good. I said I just didn't
Well,
like it.
that's to no. I'm
Well, I
just saying
started
that.
off by saying I didn't hate it. I'm not mad at
Yeah,
it or angry with it. It's just
no,
nothing.
you just been crapping on the movie the whole entire time. That's why it makes me feel like you just didn't like it. That's all.
Well, I didn't like it.
Yep. But I don't know. Like I said, like this it's a Netflix movie. It's not meant to be Hollywood big blockbuster. This is a movie you'd find on the shelf next to the other movies. Straight to DVD. I've seen. I mean, I've watched a lot of straight to DVD movies. You know, with Dolph Lundgren or Jean-Claude Van Damme.
It does
Something
seem
like
like
this.
it's one of those kind of movies, doesn't
Yeah,
it?
yeah. And like I said, I got my time's worth out of it. I enjoyed the movie.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
So
cool.
I mean,
that's what it's
I
about.
won. I won.
And winning is half the battle, or is it knowing?
Yep.
Well, that's what it comes down to. You know, I didn't think Prey. I thought Prey was done a lot better than this film. I didn't think Prey was really that good. Honestly, I thought it was mid at best as well. And unfortunately, and I think you brought up an interesting point earlier when you talked about how you compare a lot of stuff that comes out currently to stuff over the past, say, 15 to 20 years. And, you know, it may not be fair to compare it to the 80s or whatever. And I go, you know, it's not just 80s because we focused on that here on the Xtreme Movie Show and we do branch out. I think you can compare it to movies from the 30s, 40s, 50s. And usually, even though this guy's got a lot of experience, in Hollywood, he's somewhat new behind, you know, the directing thing. So we're seeing a lot more of younger people with very little experience or people that don't have a lot of experience get an opportunity. And let's be honest, you got $100 million budget and you got big names. That's not minor or trivial. It's not like they said, hey, we'll give you a chance on one or two, you know, little small budget type movies or whatever to see how you do so you can learn your craft. You're seeing this come out a lot. And I think it's very easy today to be seduced by how
Yeah.
good people can make a film look with technology and how well they can get some scores into it and other things too. That's great, but that's the sizzle. That's not the steak of the matter.
Yeah, I usually go for the action movies. I like the Guy Ritchie movies. Or that's what his name is, right? The director.
Guy Ritchie, yeah, but
Yeah.
you know it's kind of a Guy Ritchie film, right?
Yeah. Well, you know what's gonna happen. There's gonna be a lot of people getting killed. There's gonna be a lot of people getting, you know, a lot of guns. You know, a lot of people just kicking ass. You know, one guy, you know, he said this is a comedy movie with action scenes in it, and that's all Jamie Foxx is really being able to do is comedy movies. Now, I don't really watch a lot of Jamie Foxx's movies for that reason because I've never liked his. He was in the Jamie Foxx show. I just felt like, okay, this is what we're replacing Martin with.
In Living Color, Wanda
Yeah,
was mentioned
yeah.
earlier in chat.
I guess, like I said, it just. I guess the reason I like this because is the vampire is and a little bit of action scenes in here. You know, I watched Walking Dead all the way through. I mean, there's a lot of people who couldn't even watch it all the way through because they didn't like the fact that their favorite character got killed off. You know, this was corny. This was like if Disney After Dark or something like that. You know, if like because you get the kind of the sense like it's like almost like a kids movie because you're saying before this isn't a scary movie. We're used to stuff like Freddy, you know, or Jason, or you know, just like gore like this. This is just like, you know, I'm the main vampire bitch. You're gonna fall in line. If you don't like that, I'm gonna bury you under the cement, and we'll come back to you in, you know, a decade or two and see if you change your mind or not. You know, it's like, and then she's like, I'm like, you know, I'm gonna turn your daughter and like and watch her make her feed on your wife. You know, it's like just like. It's like, really,
Oh my
lady?
God, does it happen?
You're a vampire. You're a vampire. Why feed on them? Just shoot them. You have a gun. Vampires with. That's the one thing I hate about vampires. If you're gonna be like, because the idea of the plot is about this. The plot was like she wanted to basically like buy up all the land in Fernando Valley and possibly all the United States and just basically this have all vampires having under one control. All because usually the vampires they hate each other, different species. But she wanted to be like the vampire lord, which is kind of like a ripoff of from Dusk Till Dawn. They had the different like clans, you
True.
know, yeah, working together. So
Well,
I don't know. Like I said, it's a Jamie Foxx movie. I didn't think it was going to be that serious of a movie. So I'd rather watch Jamie Foxx than watch Seth Rogen any day. So
mhm.
man, and it was supposed to be new. People were saying like, oh, I figured, you know what? I check it out. I enjoyed it more than you. But I mean, it could be a whole lot better. I mean, I would have lose Dave Franco.
Yeah, and for me, I would say that my reaction to it, I was just numb. So, like I said, I wasn't pissed,
Yeah,
I wasn't mad or angry. Some films will do that or a little
I
bit,
thought the
but
neighbor was good though.
you know,
Natasha. She's.
you'll have to watch for Natasha.
Yeah.
Um, it's it's just disappointing, you
I
know.
was like, leave your wife and go with the neighbor who's a nurse.
Well, you know, nurses have a healing touch to them, so you know, I mean,
Exactly.
if they'd made it like really vulgar and disgusting, even horrible, like say the reboot of Chips from like 4 or 5 years ago, really odd, it could have had something to it. And honestly, I really kind of like the idea of a real estate agent woman being kind of like in charge, but she's really a vampire. And all I kept thinking is, oh, this would have been really cool if you see like him and his wife moving to a neighborhood, and they've got the girl and they're buying a
Yeah.
house, but he's you know, checking out her TNA or whatever because he's not getting it at home because his wife's got postpartum, you know, kind of in a lighthearted way. But then he finds out that she's kind of half seducing him to make him buy it and all that too. And then he wants to kill her, but he can't say it to his wife because, you know, they're really, really nice. And it's like, it sounds silly and stupid, but your brain automatically goes in all these
Yeah.
directions that they could, if they tried, do something
The
with it.
last good vampire movie was the reboot, actually, ironically, of Fright Night with Colin Farrell playing, you know, the neighbor, playing the vampire, playing
I would
Jerry.
say I liked
That was much more scary if that, I mean, if that actually happened to me. That this is like, okay, I'll just stay in the sun. Oh wait, the vampires are wearing sunblock. Okay, I'll spray the water bottle.
yeah. I did like Fright Night remake a little bit. We've covered
Well,
those
that was
movies on our
more
Extreme Movie Show, but
like to me
well, they
that was
tried being
much.
true to the source material is the thing.
Not even that. I mean, it was more suspenseful. Like, how do you convince people that vampires are real?
Right. They
Like,
tried doing something.
yeah, this, like I said, and then this isn't the first time I've seen where the realtor is the bad guy. You know, where somebody wants to destroy. Like, I want to level this part of the city so I can rebuild it. You know, make money off the realtor rate. You know, like so. But this is the first time I've ever seen it where the person was a vampire. The
Yep.
last time I saw this was with I think it was on show Arrow, or was it before that? It was with Dennis Hopper, one of the vampire not the vampire movies, but the zombie movies.
Hmm.
You know, he was gonna like just level the city and just rebuild it, and then like, oh yeah, I know, I'm the whatever. But like I said, this is what it's a Jamie Foxx movie. Take it at that. You like Jamie Foxx or you don't like Jamie Foxx, but I thought it actually towards the end it actually picked up a little bit, you know, but
A lot of people say that, and a lot of
yeah.
people say they like the last act. You know, I'll leave that up for people to decide because obviously I'm going to sour anybody's opinion on it early on just because I said I don't like it. Oh my God, how dare I don't think it's that good, or I don't like it, or combination.
How dare you, sir?
I dare me. That's right. I will say this: the last, I think Fright Night was 2010 or 12, the reboot or reimaging or whatever you want to call it. I actually liked from, I think it was 2014, 2015. I did like Dracula Untold, which is supposed to have been kind of like the soft reboot of the Universal Monsters things
Yeah.
that Universal was trying to do. And then, of course, Tom Cruise, you know, flopped hard with the Mummy because, again, they tried doing it too many different ways. So this is like the Jamie Foxx's version of the Mummy, just not nearly as good looking because at least, you know, Tom Cruise movie, it looks good. You know, this movie's got nice sets and scenery and stuff, but like LA, it's pretty empty. So there you go. Um, you know what? I will say this. It makes me long for a really good horror movie or even vampire movie or a
You
monster
know what?
movie.
When he drove into the, I guess what they call the drainage ditch, whatever that is, you know,
Hmm.
I kept thinking back to, what was it? Fear the Walking Dead with Nick.
I kind of can see that a little bit.
But anytime, because or Grease. I'm thinking of how many movies I've actually used it where they've actually had like car chases, like in like those things.
Yeah.
Probably
Yeah.
more than I can think of. But I mean, but still, it's like I don't know. Like I said, it's a Netflix movie. Take it what it is. There's a lot of movies that don't. There's a lot of movies that do go to theaters and they aren't that good either. The Meg. The Meg, the only thing that going for me was the fact it's like I hate the ocean. I would never go anywhere on the ocean, even a boat or in a submarine.
Right.
So that alone is scary than whatever the heck they showed. You know, shark just sinking in the sub. Like I'm done.
Well, there
So
you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Dayshift, a
yes,
Netflix special. Now, trending is number one because we don't do ratings anymore. We just do minutes played because we want to dumb down metrics for everybody, and that's the way Netflix can hide their embarrassment of films. But
6.1
oh,
out of 10 out of 21,000 people.
what's the ranking? 6?
6.1, yeah. I'm seriously 6 out of 10 on IMDb right now.
That's probably grading on a curve too. But I
21,000
like a
people
lot of
can't be
movies under
wrong.
50 too. I admit that. So there you go. All right, guys. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening to. Check us out. We're going to be starting to venture off into a couple other things here, especially as fall approaches here and we get in towards the Halloween season 2. We're strongly considering on a short list of movie that's getting ready to come out, starring Idris Elba, the lion-eating movie, because we love when animals attack, and frankly, that's why we wanted to like this Dracula movie a lot, because it's when vampires attack. It just had Jamie Foxx in it. So, like you said, accurate description. It's a Jamie Foxx movie, and I'll leave it at that. This movie or Booty Call, I'm taking Booty Call, but we'll debate that some other time. All right, guys, have a good night, and as always, stay extreme.